I fucking opened my phone the other day, and I had the greatest Christmas gift that anybody could have ever given me.
Possibly the best thing the world has ever had to offer.
It was the image, the video of a Hasidic man climbing out of a sewer grate in New York and like looking around and running away like a Looney Tunes character.
Like, it was straight up like a cartoon, but in real life.
Dude, this is what I gotta say about the Jewish tunnels. I feel so bad even saying it like that, but all right.
Well, what else would you call them?
I know. There's no other words. It's just these Jewish tunnels.
Yeah, the tunnels that Hasidic Jews pop out of. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, they're Jew tunnels.
They're the Jew tunnels. The hat coming out of the grate. All right, this is like,
and how is everything? He's so clean.
All right, like he was spotless, dude.
Like,
that dude was
spotless, pressed. Like,
them tunnels, they
not a single
sick,
wrinkle.
Dude. Yeah,
like, I mean,
dude. So I'm very happy to say this. I'm very happy that we live in a day and age now where if there was like a Nazi or there was like a really white supremacist person around us, and he was like trying to compare, or he was saying like, look at that rat, right? Look at that rat. I'm pointing at a Jewish person. A lot of people, I'm very happy. I'm serious. I'm serious.
Where are you going with this, Craig?
I'm serious. A lot of people in our day and age, in our age group and younger, would be like, what is this dude talking about? What the fuck is he talking about? Like, they don't get like the Jew rat connection, which used to be like a thing that the Nazis did, was they like referred to Jew, and I think this might even be more historical than that. They would refer to them as like rats, you know, or like plague bearers or whatever, like little animals, you know. And I cannot think of a single thing in the world that has done more damage to that than the Jew tunnels. And that video of him just like popping out looking for cheese, you know.
It's like endless jokes from here on out. Like,
it's so bad, dude. That dude set anti-Semitism to a new level that it hasn't been at in a long time. Because now people will be like, you know, that same white supremacist is like, oh, look at that rat, and they're like, oh, he's talking about the Hasidic guy because he goes in the sewers.
Like, there's gonna just be nonstop jokes because like people have always been talking about all the rat problem in New York.
Yeah. It takes on like, a new meaning now. You got to look at like which account is calling it like a rat problem now. Yeah.
They're writing the racist jokes for everyone.
Dude, you can't even compete. You can't even compete with it. Like there's no
2024 is showing us that no one can compete with real life as far as like comedy goes. Like just there's real life natural things happening will always be better than the craziest shit you can think of.
There's no anti-Semitic screed written on Stormfront that has done more damage to the Jewish community than that Hasidic man popping out of a fucking sewer with his hat on.
Written on Stormfronts, this man says. No.
It's not possible. I'm sorry. They've done a great disservice to the Jewish community by this nonsense.
Jesus Christ.
It's so bad, dude. It's really good. But the Jewish tunnels are so funny.
It gives me the same question that we kept asking about Manson of just why? Why? That's my biggest question is why? Like, why do you want to be in the tunnels? What would provoke you to be like, you know where we should live? Fucking underground in the tunnels. Like, What on earth would make you think that is where you should go?
His little head up and he's looking around. Oh my God, dude.
I want to sit that man down for an interview. And the whole thing is just me looking him in the eye and saying, why? Why?
If he popped his head up and he saw his shadow, it was going to be 6 more weeks of war in Gaza.
No!
Oh.
Oh, no!
Oh, it looks like it's going to be a very genocide winter. Oh, God. I can't take it.
Oh, I can't.
Too good.
Oh, my God. That might be the best joke I've ever heard you make. The 6 more weeks. That's my new favorite joke I've ever heard in my whole life.
I think that's going cold open for sure.
If that's not the cold open, I quit the podcast.
Welcome everyone to another episode of From Right to Red. I am Craig.
And I am Paul.
And today we have an awesome episode. Before we get into the meat, though, we've got a few things to go over. First of all, if you haven't already, please go to patreon.com/FromRightToRed and subscribe. $3 a month. Sign up. Let us know that you love what we do so that we can keep doing it for you. That's number one.
Yeah, I'm glad we're remembering that now.
Right.
Like,
number two,
give us money.
Give us money, please.
Yeah.
Right? We just want money.
I mean, we just want to be better.
If we really wanted, if it was just about money, we would only have one tier and it would be $100 a month. But instead it's $3 a month.
Yeah.
So
we'd be like, if you were a true comrade, you would give us the 100.
Would hook it up.
We'd play that where it's like, no, if you can't afford it, I mean, that's why we made it $3.
That's it.
And if you still can't, okay, that's cool. Listen to it anyway.
Right. I hope those text messages didn't come through the recording just now. That's all right. The next thing,
nice,
I got some
boomer.
Updates. I know. I'm just always stay boomering.
Yeah, I'm like
update
3 years younger.
Is I don't know if you saw this, but the first of all, before we even go any further, yes, another hiatus. I'm sorry, Paul and I got back to back COVID. You can probably still hear it in our voices a little bit. He got COVID, and then just before his symptoms came up, we had sex. So I got COVID from him. Yeah, and so we've been back to back COVID, trying to recover through that. So apologies again. The next update that we had, though, I don't know if you saw this, but the IDF Cum Sucking Brigade hit a milestone. Did you see that? They actually put out an official tweet, again, for folks that haven't listened to the other episode about the IDF Cum Sucking Brigade or whatever. Please Google it. But they put out an update on their Twitter account that said that they had officially reached 100 semen samples retrieved from the battlefield of Gaza.
Woo!
So, I mean, there's two pieces of good news there. Yeah,
true work being done.
Right. The number one piece of good news, obviously, it's great that they recovered all of this cum from these IDF soldiers. Yeah. That's great. Number two, that means at least 100 IDF soldiers have been killed in Gaza. So,
hell yeah.
Hamas.
And they didn't even get to enjoy coming.
Right. Racking up the points. I'm kind of kidding. So there's that news.
Yeah, just so it's on record, I'm totally joking about laughing at that. Yeah, I don't want him to be dying.
We don't like that.
No,
that's not good. The other update from Gaza and Palestine today, on the day that we're recording, a rather historic day. Paul reminded me this morning that it was the day one of the official court proceedings at the International Court of Justice.
Yeah, way to announce that one, as I had to tell you about it this morning.
You got it. I know. Take it. Do it. Tell me what happened. I didn't listen to the proceedings very much. You got to give me a rundown.
No, I mean, I'm sure you knew it was happening. You just didn't remember it was today. But right. No, we had a lot of very good opening statements today. And then not to show how, geez, I'm online a lot. Even during my work shift today, I've already listened to the Emma on Majority Report talk about it. She does a better job than I could ever do discussing why it's important these people are getting up and speaking, and they play a lot of the really good clips that are on there. Because there's pretty much everyone who spoke had at least one solid clip they could cut out that was just amazing, like of everyone standing together from multiple different countries to stand with South Africa and openly discuss what's happening right now, which, I mean, for how war has gone the last however many years, how often have we been able to do that in the midst of what's happening?
Right.
Of let's go and we have all these people together discussing what's happening and how it's affecting human rights and innocent people. And we're able to do that right now in real time, kind of.
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of amazing people who spoke and did a great job. They presented tons of evidence as well. Even short video clips they presented, and like in court.
Now this is South Africa trying to prove that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I should have explained that for anyone.
I was doing a little exposition.
Doesn't know why. Yeah. Because some people might not know what this court case is. But yeah, so they presented a lot of good evidence of even clips of Israelis saying these things openly, of this is our goal, this is what we're trying to do. The only worry I have is one you brought up with me today, of the reach that the UN has and this court has. Even if they are found guilty, the people responsible for handling that afterwards,
right?
A huge, I guess, arm of power in that is the U.S.
Yep.
So even if they're found guilty, what will come of it? I mean, our president's going around Congress to give them more money and weapons right now. So, like, I don't feel very confident that right now the U.S. would really do anything of value there. Of like, I don't see them turning a new leaf and being like, you know what? We see that this is bad now. Like, I just don't see that happening.
Have you ever heard of like the, I can't remember the exact name of the bill, but it's like the Hague Intervention Act or something like that in the United States? It's a law in the United States that if an American is imprisoned or convicted of war crimes in The Hague, the United States has the right, according to our laws, to invade them. Did you know that?
Like, that is a law?
Yeah. Let me look it up.
What?
This makes for good radio. Look on
that is wild. Yeah. Yeah, why don't you listen to him looking that up?
Yeah. Hey, why don't we all just listen to some shit that I don't know enough about to know off the top of my head?
That's just sense. An insane idea.
Yeah, it was signed in 2002. It's called the Hague Invasion Act. And I'm sorry. The full name is the American Service Members Protection Act. known informally as the Hague Invasion Act. And it protects our troops from being wrongfully held in The Hague for war crimes. It allows us to...
wrongfully held for war crimes?
Yeah. I mean, pick any service member. That's not wrongly. That's not wrongly. That's not wrongly.
That sounds just like the way the American police work too, though. I mean, so it makes sense of like, sure. You know what? Yeah, he did this horrible thing, but he's a cop. So, you know, immunity, that's like the one good thing body cams have done is that if a cop's wearing one and has it on, even if he wants to give a cop a break, he's kind of like, crap. Like, right. Man, I can't now because they're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that should say enough in itself of like, if you have to have video on yourself 24/7, you're not very trustworthy.
No.
Like, clearly there's a problem. Clearly something bad is going on there.
Right. All right. Well, those are the updates, and we're a little ways in here, so I might as well let the viewers know today. While I was holed up sick with COVID, I decided to read some books about Charles Manson. Specifically, one of the best ones that I read was Chaos. Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s by Tom O'Neill, which is a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, you should definitely read it. Check it out. It kind of covers some of the things that we're going to talk about now. But before we even get into Charles Manson and talking about like how in the world that can kind of relate to politics in any way, I want to set the scene with like what was going on. I don't even know if we want to give
what else did you read besides Chaos?
I read the prosecutor Bugliosi's book, which I had never read before.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, have you read Helter Skelter in the past at all?
No. This was my first time reading Helter Skelter, and I read it after Chaos, which was weird.
But honestly, that probably gives you a different perspective completely,
it made me very, very aware of
the lies you were about to read in Helter Skelter.
Dude, like the crazy part in Helter Skelter is just like where he decides to skip telling the story.
Yeah.
Like there's these gaps all throughout. And you're like, what? Wait, what? And you don't notice it if you're reading it like for the first time. But after reading Chaos, you're like, wait, there's a very serious reason why isn't this here? You know?
That's one of those
into in the book.
Yeah. When I first read Chaos, which was probably almost a year ago now, that was one of those things I was like, I need to go back and read Helter Skelter now, like from this perspective now.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know, and I just have never done it. I should.
It was worth the trip.
Because that's when I read that book, probably at an age I shouldn't have. I was that kid, always reading books like, I don't know, like 8th birthday, I asked for all the Edgar Allan Poe works.
Really emo kid.
I was just reading about Unabomber, Manson and stuff before I was a teenager, but like, this is one that I love that we're doing for that reason, because Manson's always been one that like, even when I was young and for the reason of just being rebellious, I was like, maybe he wasn't that bad, right. I always had that. And with time I've varied back and forth of like, he's pretty fucked up. Yeah. And then I've gone back to, he, victim of circumstance. Yeah. But like reading Chaos gives you such a different perspective than anything we've been aware of this entire time since what?
And I do want to say
60s.
Putting myself on the record, I do think Charles Manson was bad.
Obviously. He's a total psycho. I mean,
total psychopath.
That's the journey I went on, as a weird teenager.
For sure.
Like back and forth of,
and none of this episode is trying to like reform his image just so that we're aware here. But I think it's important to understand like what was going on in the 60s And so I kind of want to paint that picture a little bit, because I know that like everybody who's listening to this probably was not alive in the 60s and has only kind of like heard about it, like fairy tale wise, Summer of Love, like hippies, all that stuff. But
and Black Panthers,
right?
That's what I think. Hippies and Black Panthers. When I think about that time,
which is actually like a perfect encapsulation of like what the 60s were about. Really, I mean,
and very important two things for this episode too. Like,
yeah. So in the 60s, you know, there was kind of a whole new movement, and if you look it up, a lot of scholars refer to it as kind of the new left. And what had happened in the quote unquote new left was, you know, after the big, you know, after the kind of big push down of communism, we kind of had this like pushback of like, hey, we can be left and we can still hope for like socialist ideals, but you know, we're not going to support, you know, any of those crazy commies or anything. So it was kind of like a left light type of thing. And
crazy commies.
Yeah, and it had it saw a lot of like, there were a lot of different groups that composed what scholars would refer to as the new left. You had like the Black Panthers, which were a explicitly leftist organization. You had Students for a Democratic Society, which were an explicitly socialist or communist group. You had Women's Strike for Peace. You had all different types of other communist, socialist, anarchist kind of small movements. You had the White Panthers, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. They're a group of white people that were just like in support of Black Panthers. And the White Panthers had a lot of like celebrity.
Yeah, a lot of LA actors and stuff.
It was like the kind of hip thing for like LA socialite type thing, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you had like the hippie movement. You know, you had that was like a big driving force of the new left, was this free love, hippie movement, communes, like trying to create alternative lifestyles and alternative ways to live, and thinking about society in different ways. You had the free love movement, and the worst part, as far as our government was concerned at the time, and I'll give you some detail about that in a moment, but the worst part was the intersectionality of all of these groups. Like the fact that they could kind of be put under one umbrella as the new left, that felt dangerous to people in power in our country. And so what you ended up with...
Just for a second, pause and think about that.
Yeah.
The people in power were like absolutely terrified of chill hippies, people fighting for equal rights, like literally just, hey, equal rights, like cops stop harassing us type things that we're still seeing coming up now. But like, that is how far right, I guess, it already was at that time. To think like the hippie movement, they were like disrupted by, they were scared of. Yeah. And they were just like, yeah, peace and love. And they're like, this is terrifying.
A lot of people don't even know this either, but like the first like serious piece of gun legislation that was ever passed was passed by a conservative in California against the Black Panthers, because the Black Panthers were at the time walking around open carrying shotguns to any type of police interaction that they saw in their neighborhoods. If they saw the police stopping somebody, they would show up, they would observe, and they'd have their guns drawn. Not aiming at anybody, but they'd have their guns out, visible, and they would just be observing the police. Just that, Black people observing police with guns was scary enough that it made conservatives, you know, the gun-loving conservatives, write this nation's first piece of gun legislation, which was attempting to stop the Black Panthers from open carrying around California. That legislation, signed into law by a governor of California at the time, Ronald Reagan.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh,
the
got his
devil
ass.
Himself.
Got his ass. Oh, you don't like
Man,
guns,
he just
fake ass.
Yeah, he just pops up so many bad scenarios, and his name pops up.
Yeah,
damn it, Ronald Reagan.
And so for those of you that are listening and are like, dude, okay, cool. Craig said that the government was scared of hippies.
Yeah.
I don't believe him.
Yeah. He says that all the time.
Right.
What else is new?
So I brought some receipts, okay? The CIA and the FBI, they saw these movements, the Black Panthers, the hippie movement, this entire new left that was coming up, and they responded to it. They responded to it by creating two parallel operations. One was called Operation COINTELPRO. The other was called Operation Chaos, which is where the book that we read got its name. Now, Operation Chaos, unfortunately, so that was the CIA's part of this program to disrupt the new left in America. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the documentation for that project, that operation, is gone.
Wait, but Craig, isn't it illegal to get rid of that kind of stuff?
Paul, I'm glad that you asked, because it is really illegal, and yet
Isn't
the CIA still did
a felony?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Now,
also, is that possibly because the CIA isn't supposed to operate on our own land? Maybe.
Right. Yeah. At the time,
weird.
At the time, Operation Chaos came into play, and it was being created and rolled out by the CIA. It was explicitly illegal for the CIA to have any operations within the domestic United States. They were not supposed to be surveilling, operating, doing these experiments or projects on American citizens domestically here. They did it anyways. And then when there was the possibility of a leak of that operation, they just said, fuck it, and just deleted, removed, destroyed all the records of it. So there's very, very, very little out there of Operation Chaos. There is a lot more about Operation COINTELPRO, but I will also say a lot of COINTELPRO got removed as well. And the only reason that we know what we do know about Operation COINTELPRO is a group of concerned citizens who to this day have not been 100% positively identified, broke into an FBI field office, found some of the documents, leaked them to the press, and that led into investigations that unfortunately tipped off about chaos and, led to some deletion of records or destruction of records. But absolute heroes. Just for the burglary alone.
I mean, yeah. You had me at they broke in.
yeah. Robbing an FBI field office is based no matter what.
In case you're ever looking for more reasons to hate this CIA, come to this podcast. There's probably a reason every episode.
Right. We always try and give one or two.
Like and they just show up in all of it. Like
it's serious.
They just happen to pop up in every bad thing.
I know. People say I talk about the CIA too much. No, the CIA doing too much.
Right? They be out here way too much. They be
out here. Yeah. So what we do have, though, luckily, one of the things that managed to survive this mass destruction, illegal destruction of records from these illegal operations that were taking place is a memo announcing COINTELPRO by the FBI. And it was the memo was written by Hoover, who was in charge of the FBI at the time. I highlighted some key aspects of this memo that I wanted to read for everybody because, again, nobody's going to believe me. Craig says they were scared of the hippies and the supposed new left. I don't believe him. All right, here's Hoover in his own words talking about creating an operation to stop the new left. The purpose of this program is to expose, disrupt, and otherwise neutralize the activities of the various new left organizations, their leadership, and their adherents. Later on in the memo, he says that he wants to that they should use counterintelligence to inspire action where circumstances warrant. And later on, he talks about that in order to hide the operation, they want to use the cooperation of reliable news media sources. Let's see, where else? He's got
which they've never stopped using news media.
That's never stopped. Just so people are aware, they are continuously using news media.
But like if they were doing that back then, obviously don't trust the media now.
Right. Later in the memo, he talks about more of those organizations, and he says, the organizations and activists who spout revolution and unlawfully challenge society to obtain their demands must not only be contained, but must be neutralized. Law and order is mandatory. Is literally what he says. That's, I mean, that's his own words. What else? There it is. Black and white. He wants to get rid of this supposed new left, right? Richard Helms was in charge of the CIA. Like I said, he was simultaneously working with the FBI. They were doing COINTELPRO. CIA was doing Operation Chaos. Very, very similar type of mission statement. They saw this new left kind of growing. They wanted to make sure that they could stop that. The purpose was clear. The new left movements, the Panthers, the hippies, their allies that were growing in Hollywood, they needed to be surveilled, they needed to be targeted, and they needed to be destroyed by any means possible. Again, these are their words, not ours. And I need to keep saying that kind of stuff because this episode is going to be the one where everybody's like, Craig is just like the craziest conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Like, cut that clip out. Craig just said this.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's important to like understand hearing it from their own words. Like they're openly saying, let's do all of these illegal things in writing.
Right. So there it is. So, all right. That's kind of the state of the 60s, right? Before we get into the rest of the meat of this episode, we have all of these new left movements coalescing. There's some intersectionality. There's some reaching out between these organizations that is noted by the powers that be here in the United States. They see it and they respond with, like I said, these two operations that are aimed at destroying that new left coalition. That's where we are. Now, something, completely unrelated to any of that. Let's talk about Charles Manson in the 60s, right? This has nothing to do with it because, right, like if we look at the murder, what was the murder about, right? The official story of the murder, there's no connection there whatsoever. It was about Helter Skelter, right? Paul, you're very familiar with Helter Skelter.
It was about that is what they said.
Right.
And then they also used the story of Manson trying to get payback.
Yeah.
For them not giving him a record deal.
Right. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back, right?
Yeah. But essentially, like, the Helter Skelter is... it was a wild... Jesus. Do that into the mic a little more, bro.
I'm sorry. I'm on mute. I hope that didn't come through. Holy cow, dude. This sickness is still coming through. Is that horrible to listen to?
Wait, so I still hear you when you're on mute?
I guess, apparently. Oh, hopefully I'm actually muting it.
Oh, man, I hope all that nose stuff was in there. But Manson had this wild idea that there had to be this race war between the Black Panthers and white people, that like it was inevitable there would be a war, and then they were meant to repopulate after the war is over. And clearly, since he's white, guess which side he thought was going to win. But essentially, he wanted to kind of
thought the blacks were going to win.
Oh yeah, he did. But
yeah,
he wanted to provoke that into existence was also another thing they claimed. I don't know that he ever explicitly said it, but who knows? The guy was nuts. He may have said that and 100 other things.
Right,
like
sure.
The dude, literally, you can find quotes that sound like the most loving thing about his mother, because he talked about his mom all the time. But like, then you'll next see the wildest, crazy thought. Like, it's essentially, you see someone who took way too much acid at a festival and they say some crazy shit to your face.
Yeah.
That's Manson half the time. Like, half of his quotes are just a wild man on drugs, which I can appreciate for what it is. But like, it was never like definitively proven 100% why Manson did what he did. Like, he never openly admitted for sure one final thing.
Yeah.
But Helter Skelter was another one definitely thrown out there of like trying to incite the race war.
And that was kind of like what the entire trial was about, right? And that's kind of what I want to focus on a little bit, was like...
Which, the trial is insanity.
The prosecutor that was prosecuting him was this guy named Bugliosi, and his entire thing... In fact, he wrote a book called Helter Skelter. His entire point...
The dude should have been fired by the time he got the case, too.
Right, we'll get into that. But his entire point was that the reason Manson did these murders was Manson himself believed in Helter Skelter, which was this race war that was supposed to start, you know. And when you ask, when Bugliosi, the prosecutor, was asked years later, after the conviction, if he believed that Manson believed in Helter Skelter, he was asked a couple times, he said no. He didn't believe that Manson believed in Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
So then you have to ask yourself...
He was just trying to convince other people, but he didn't believe it himself.
Right, but that kind of destroys the whole thing, right? Because, like...
Yeah, because he's the man who went in court and said the opposite.
Yeah, and if he didn't believe in Helter Skelter, then why would he send these people there, right? So that gets to, like, the fallback excuse, which is that, you see, a lot of people don't know this. I think it's kind of lost in Charles Manson, but he was pretty plugged in at the time to Hollywood. He had a lot of famous friends. He actually lived, he lived with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys. Like, they lived together. They had a harem of women that they just like hung out and banged.
Which I can appreciate that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, get it,
the weirdest part of that is how they met. Of Manson picked him up. He was a hitchhiker, and that's how they initially met. Like, people still hitchhiked in those days. Like, to imagine someone who would then be in the Beach Boys was literally getting picked up on the side of the road by Charles Manson.
That's how the whole family, Manson and the family, did their recruiting too. Is they would hitchhike, they'd send pretty girls out to hitchhike and then pick up, you know, whoever they could. So the fallback,
if I was alive
excuse,
then, they would have got me.
Right. The fallback excuse that Bugliosi had was, okay, there's this guy named Terry Melcher. He's a big shot. He's got a record. He's a record whatever producer. His mom is Doris Day, right? I think that's the same guy. Terry Melcher's mom is Doris Day.
Yeah.
He promises Charles Manson a recording contract. And then kind of reneged on the offer. And so that was kind of the fallback. Okay, Manson doesn't believe in Helter Skelter, but he sent these people to kill Sharon Tate and everybody at the Sharon Tate house because Terry Melcher used to live there, and that would send a message to Terry Melcher.
Yeah.
So first of all, just on the face of it, that's like silly. You know, like if I'm going to send a message to somebody, I'm going to send
it to them.
Bed. Yeah, I'm not going to send it
to them.
Yeah, I'm not going to send it to a house they used to live at. What kind of bullshit is that? So that's stupid. And then number two, it's now definitively proven that even after the murders, Terry Melcher met with Charles Manson on multiple occasions. So if he met with him afterwards, he obviously either didn't understand the message or that was not a message for him. You know,
maybe they didn't put it in the news enough. He didn't see the message.
He just didn't notice the biggest murder in history. You know,
and it's important to remember this is the man who everyone took his word for things,
right?
And he's lying about every last detail.
Yes.
Just throwing things at the wall and hoping it sticks. Like, And also, no, you have it at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll
but
get
what
to
he
it.
Does with the other attorney.
yes, we're definitely gonna get to that.
Like that's anyone can obviously see that and be like, well, should be a mistrial instantly. Like,
yeah, the crazy part about the Terry Melcher thing is that, like I said, he saw him multiple times after the murders took place. Wasn't scared of him, but the craziest part is that the prosecutor knew this. Juliosi has handwritten notes with the witnesses that saw Terry Melcher at the ranch with Charles Manson after the murders. He hand wrote these notes out that showed that the prosecutor knew it. And then when Terry Melcher went on the stand, he was asked if he had seen him after then, and he said no.
Right.
Right? So, like, Terry Melcher knew that he saw him afterwards. The prosecutor knew that he saw him afterwards, and yet they're on the stand lying about it. So the question that starts to just, like, worm into your brain is, why were they lying about that?
Yeah, like obviously there's something, what are they trying so hard to not tell everyone?
Yeah, so what's going on? So let's kind of dig in a little bit, because once you understand that like the main story, the official story we've been told, and that was told at trial about Helter Skelter and the Terry Melcher connection, once you understand that those are clearly bullshit, like Manson didn't believe in Helter Skelter, first of all. And second of all, Terry Melcher was not scared of Manson, clearly didn't get the message if that was supposedly what was supposed to be happening. And then they lied about it. That's weird, you know? So that starts kind of like making you inspect things. And let's get to some of them. First of all, I want to talk about the connections that Charles Manson had, right? So obviously you mentioned Terry Melcher.
And I do want really quick, before you throw in his connections, to remember who Manson was in his entire life and why he was such a easy target or easy choice of someone, I don't know, to do all this with, or allow to do his thing. Because this man, I can't remember the exact amount of years,
17.
but I think, was it
of 34? Yeah. Over half his life.
17 of 34. That was the numbers.
Or like 32 or something. It was over half his life.
Something insane like that. Like by his 30s, he had spent more than half of his life in some kind of government facility, whether it was juvenile detention, when he was very young. He was
and none of them
having his mother in his life type thing. Like she was in and out. She was a prostitute, like drug addict, and you know, so he had her in and out of his life, and he was in and out of those, like getting caught stealing cars by 12 or 13, I think. Already had Grand Theft Auto charges. Dude, at 12 or 13, I could hardly ride my Huffy around, dude. Like, this man was already, so like he was a broken child already at 13. Imagine, like, if you're 13, you're doing that, like, he's already like the perfect unhinged person if you need that.
And I'll say that
I think he called incarceration his father or something. That,
and he
like,
he
the
always
system
said,
was his father.
He always said that he wanted to be back in. So of those 17 years that I'm counting, those are only federal. So there may have been some other years that are included that were like state.
Some and he had a lot of overnight stays, you know.
Like but he had stays. 17 years of federal imprisonment, so over half of his life. And when he got out, he immediately told his parole officer that he's not made for outside. He just wants to be back in, right? So this is a guy that like is institutionalized.
His parole officer was unhinged too.
Well, yeah, for sure. Which we actually are getting into that at the end of our connection section here.
Yeah, and if anyone enjoys any of this and really wants to hear all of the nitty-gritty, do read the book. Like, Tom O'Neill, it wasn't the style I've read a lot of.
Me either.
Like that journalistic, but in long format style. Like, but somehow he just makes such a good story. Yeah, like, and maybe that is why I was able to end up loving it. But like, these are some of our favorite points. But if you really love this topic, read the book. Definitely. There's so much information, we could never cover it all.
It's very good. So here's some of the people that Charles Manson knew. All right. Before the night of the murders, before the night of the Tate murders, he knew Terry Melcher, like I said. He was in contact with at least 2 different confirmed CIA agents, Charles Taycott, and Billy Doyle. There's a third possible CIA agent that is not 100% confirmed, somebody by the name of Reeve Whitson. And then all of like Hollywood's biggest rising stars at the time, including Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate,
which they were like the couple at that time. Like they were the coolest. They were like, I don't know, a good reference for celebrities right now. I guess what used to be Brad and Angelina or whatever. Like it was like
they were
the
Hollywood
power
couple.
Like everyone knew them.
And everybody now knows that Roman
Manson was cool
piece of shit
them.
Because he's living in France. But even back then, he was a piece of shit.
Manson was chilling with these high celebs. Like
he was plugged in
writing songs
to that
with
scene,
the Beach
which
Boys.
is important for for what we're getting to. Writing literally writing songs for the Beach Boys. Like the Beach Boys, they have published music that was written by Charles Manson. Anyways, so he's plugged in there.
Knew people, and the fact that he already knew CIA people at that point, why?
Why?
You've been in the U.S. for all of this. Why?
Yeah. Why? Anyways,
why would you even know them?
On top of that, so the thing about Charles Manson, he was a cult leader. Obviously, he had this whole family of these like women that he was constantly having sex with. They needed sexual health care, regular health care. They didn't
weird how every cult has that in it.
I know, right? It's almost like
that's weird. But everyone's got to bang me. Who would have thought?
Oh wow, that's a new tenet. We never saw that in a cult before.
Yeah. Wait, are you sure? Well, I guess God said so.
So they're doing all this banging. They need healthcare.
Doing all these drugs and banging.
And his parole officer says, "Hey, I actually I work part-time as a researcher of LSD and its effects on the mind. And I opened up a medical clinic with another man named Jolly West, and it's called the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. And you can come all the time and get free healthcare." And so they did.
Yeah. That doesn't sound shady at all.
Charles Manson and the family were regulars at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. And when I say regulars, I don't mean like they were there, once or twice a month. No, they were there 3 to 5 times a week. Yeah. Somebody, Charles or members of the family were there 3 to 5 times a week with Jolly West and, and his parole officer, whose name is on the tip of my tongue. It's going to bother the shit out of me.
Can't remember,
but for those of
you, can you imagine your parole officer being like, "Hey, dude, you want some acid?"
Right, dude. And so, for those of you who don't know who Jolly West is and why that name is such a freaking name drop, Jolly West is his entire career was in a program by the CIA called MK Ultra. The point of MK Ultra was to study the effects of LSD and mind control and how you could get a group of people to do your bidding. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, maybe like how to get a group of people to kill somebody for you. Like that was what he studied his whole life. And he happened to be at this Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, which was the funding for that didn't come directly from the CIA, but it came through an intermediary company that was owned by the CIA. So look, again, everybody's going to call me a conspiracy theorist, but this stuff is out there. It's available. Yeah. Look it up. The Haight-Ashbury
Freedom of Information Act.
It was literally run with CIA money, and it was headed by a CIA scientist who spent his entire career studying mind control and how to control people with LSD. Like, that's there. Okay.
And I just don't get why we never have the story of like secretly the CIA was trying to make puppies cuter.
Right. They never do anything
why
cool.
is it always got to be, or like even with LSD, like why couldn't it have been like we were just trying to study the effects of this new drug we didn't know the effects of.
Right.
They instantly go to how can we control people's minds?
Right. How can we use this to make mothers kill their children and drink their blood?
Yeah. Like this is the type of people that are drawn to these organizations are people who have these types of ideas. Like my first thought trying LSD was, wow, I never have seen the world look like this. And this has been wild. And I laughed a lot, but never once was I like, I could use this to get another person to kill another human.
Right.
Like what kind of unhinged, weird psychopath people are in charge of these organizations that's what their brain, they're like, yeah, let's control minds like we're in a freaking movie. Like I'm a supervillain in a movie, controlling minds. That's an actual documented program. Like
the type
we want to control your mind.
That are looking for that.
And Manson spent tons of time with them.
Right. And so like if you want to ask yourself a question like, man, Manson got out of jail and within less than 2 years had built an entire cult of people using LSD and mind control techniques to bend them to his will to do whatever he asked of them. If you're asking yourself, man, how could some dude who spent half of his life in federal prison figure out how to use LSD in such a way so quickly? I think the answer lies in the people that he was consorting with at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. That's all I'll say. More connections.
Roger Smith was his parole officer.
Roger Smith.
I had to look it up because I knew it was going to bother me. I always used to remember it because it's how they named the alien in the show American Dad. The better version of Family Guy.
Did they named him after that person?
Yeah.
That's really suspect. That makes me want to.
Well, because the main character is in the CIA.
Oh, I never watched the show. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, weird things like that pop up in the show. When people loved Family Guy, I liked that show. I watched that instead. I like laughing at the CIA.
The next like weird thing. So there's some of the connections that I think are strange for Charles Manson to have. Connected all these CIA agents at this medical clinic, staffed by CIA agents, funded by the CIA. I think that's weird, right? Number two,
that he just so happens to get a parole officer who like moonlights as doing this.
Right. I think it actually
weird, isn't it?
Is the other weird, isn't it? I think
weird, isn't it?
Technically it's like the other way around. I think like I probably spoke wrong. I think his main job was as an LSD mind control researcher, and he like moonlight as a parole officer.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, actually, you're right. That makes more sense.
Totally a normal thing.
Like the parole officer was like his cover.
Right. So the next thing that's weird about the Charles Manson case is when you look at like the amount of leniency that he had. So again,
his family and the family had the leniency too.
Anybody in his orbit, yeah. So he spent half of his life in federal prison up until this point. He was out on parole,
and all of a sudden they're like, we don't want you in prison anymore.
Yeah, all of a sudden, like,
no matter what you do,
he couldn't get himself back into prison, and he explicitly told his own parole officer, like
he wanted to be there.
I want to go back to prison, and his parole officer was like, "Nah, fam,
like
that ain't happening.
Ever gonna happen again?"
Literally, and it didn't. Like until the murders, until he was arrested months after the murders.
You even list all of these like different reasons he was arrested as well. Like
Yeah,
like
so he was arrested multiple times.
Reasons.
After he was released, he was arrested multiple times. When a single arrest for any of these reasons should have immediately revoked his parole and put him back in jail, and it never happened. He was arrested over a dozen times.
Yeah.
One situation, he was arrested with an underage woman. Both of them were on drugs. The underage woman was arrested. He was arrested. He was released, and she was charged.
Yeah. Like
the underage woman.
Yeah, but it's girl. Always that story of like he gets arrested sometime during the night or the next day. Someone shows up, and all of a sudden he's released.
Right, and so there was a bunch of arrests. There's also when he was living at the Spahn Ranch. Anytime the police came, which was often, if you go through and look at the records of police contact at the Spahn Ranch, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of times they went out to that ranch because people were complaining like, hey, there's a group of cult followers out here with guns and drugs, like tons and tons and tons of drugs and guns. And so the cops would go out there, and they'd all have guns drawn on the police. And Charles Manson would come up to the cop car and be like, I got all these guns drawn on you. And he's a federal parolee. And they're just like, yeah, all right, dude, take it easy. Yeah, have a good one. Right.
Yeah, like imagine the cops doing that. Like you have guns drawn on them. And they're like, all right, have a good one, man. We're going to just take off. Like, nothing to see here.
And that part sounds a little weird because people are like, okay, so now you're saying, Craig, like the whole LAPD was in on it. And you don't really need the whole LAPD.
I mean, it's the LAPD, first of all.
Right. It was LAPD.
Like a known history for like 60 years of nonstop
But
corruption.
All you really need is like somebody in the LAPD who's in a high up position who might field most of these kind of like things that come through.
Maybe like a district attorney?
That's true. But I'm also thinking of Lieutenant Herman of the LAPD, who was in charge of taking care of most of these Spahn Ranch things. And
I forgot about that, dude.
He was noted as working for multiple government intelligence agencies while he was working for the LAPD. So you don't really need the whole team, guys. You just need a couple of well-placed key players to kind of keep things under wraps. And that's
because especially him, a lieutenant, like any cop under that, like he still has the authority over them. So even if someone else arrests him and they have a lieutenant in charge and a DA who's all like in on it, doesn't matter. He could get arrested for a night and they're like, hey, no, he's out.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's just like your boss showing up and being like, hey, actually, no, you're wrong. Like they had all the key players.
That was all locked up. That's all I needed.
But do you have any more about Jolly West, though?
Yeah,
because I feel like we did skip over him, and I think he's worth a little more of an explanation of Jolly West, who really he was a partner on the HAF,
the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Yeah, he was a partner there.
Like, this man was involved in so many other things.
Yeah. If you study insane. Like parapolitics or geopolitics or CIA type stuff, you know his name by this point, you know. But I will give like one of his other great exploits, if you want, real briefly.
Yes,
so for the listeners. It's so hard to literally. It's so hard to even say this without sounding like a nut job. But all right, let's talk about JFK.
But it's all like it's all documented, man.
I know.
That's the worst is people will still call you like conspiracy theorists. It's like I have their documents saying they were doing it.
Them. Right? This is them saying it, not me.
Like I have his personal memo.
Yeah.
They're like, you conspiracy theorist. Like, no, he said these words.
So JFK is assassinated, right? And all of you, I'm sure, remember the person that assassinated him was a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, there's a whole lot we can talk about Lee Harvey Oswald. I happen to think that he did kill him.
We can talk about why my middle names are Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a whole lot, of conversation there, right? But so Lee Harvey Oswald kills JFK. There's a man by the name of Jack Ruby. So Lee Harvey Oswald gets arrested. I don't remember if it's like on his way to an arraignment or on his way from like one processing cell to another.
He was being transported somewhere, like from one
place to another.
He's being transported.
Lee Harvey Oswald being transported, and this guy named Jack Ruby comes out of the crowd and shoots Lee Harvey Oswald and kills him. And so your immediate question should be, who the fuck is Jack Ruby, and why would he do that?
Right? Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. We're all mad, but like, you're going to just shoot him, let him stand trial.
Right. We want to hear, right? We want to hear what took place. So okay. This guy, Jack Ruby, kills Lee Harvey Oswald. And if you look at who Jack Ruby was, he was a man who owned or operated nightclubs, strip clubs, seedy kind of things for the mafia. He wasn't a main man. He wasn't a wise guy himself. He wasn't all the way at the top, but he had connections to people like Meyer Lansky, who was a known CIA operative. And so they arrest Jack Ruby for killing Lee Harvey Oswald. And I can't remember the exact series of events, but I know that Jolly West almost immediately starts petitioning the court to come and do a psychological evaluation of Jack Ruby.
Same day.
The same
like day. Immediately. And back then it wasn't, let me check my cell phone. Like, and news, somehow this dude is like sequestering the court day of.
Immediately. Right? He wants to get in there and talk to this guy. And the judge wasn't having it. You know, the judges kind of shot it down for a while. But after, I want to say a week, 2 weeks, something like that. I'm not sure exactly how long. Jolly West gets his wish. He goes in for a psychological evaluation of Jack Ruby, who previous to this had never had any type of, besides being in connections with the mafia, had previously never had any type of like mental instability. And Jolly West comes out of this psychological evaluation and says, well, it seems that Jack Ruby has had a psychological break with reality. And, there's really nothing there left anymore.
Yeah.
And every psychological evaluation that took place after that was kind of the same thing. His brain is scrambled. Like, there's nothing left.
Which is really weird because, like, have you ever heard of people taking far too much LSD and their brain is scrambled forever after?
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that.
It's probably unrelated because Jolly West has nothing to do with LSD.
Right. Right. Before the Jack Ruby thing took place, there was actually a memo that was found. The memo was found after his death, Jolly West's deaths, in his own personal effects. But before meeting with Jack Ruby, he had sent a memo to the head of the CIA, who was the head of the CIA project that he was a part of, a guy named Sidney Gottlieb, I believe, sent a memo to him saying, hey, we cracked it. Like, we did it. We were able to completely obliterate somebody's mind with LSD and mind control.
Totally unrelated events.
Totally unrelated. So that's Jolly West.
Like, this is the guy who is partnered with the parole officer of Charles Manson.
Yep.
In this place that Manson frequents and uses LSD often with his family, quote unquote, with him.
Right.
And it's just like, this is how high up, because it's like, we're talking about the murder of a president.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's got a lot of pull. He's involved in a lot of different things that look like he was writing the plans for what Manson ended up doing the whole time. It was like,
literally,
he kept trying and he's like, I can't get it to work. And somehow Manson had the right recipe.
He really nailed it, you know? It strains credulity to look at something like that. A CIA LSD mind control researcher in that proximity to Charles Manson, and then him using LSD to mind control, quote unquote, people into killing. Like, it strains credulity to think that that is just a coincidence. I'm sorry. It's very difficult to believe that that's just a coincidence. So
yeah. And And it's almost like the classic CIA move too could have even been what happened, where they may not have even really pushed him to do it or like set it all up and been in cahoots. They could have just provided the environment to allow it to happen.
And honestly, my take on it, I was going to get to it at the end, but like, I don't even think they wanted it to go this far.
Yeah, I keep skipping and interrupting because you still have a couple points, and I think the last two, the D and E of this, are very important before we get to this kind of just talking, because then we do got to do a quick rant about Bugliosi's dumbass.
I know, I probably should have put that elsewhere, but yeah, it strains credulity. It's very difficult to believe it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, because there's too many coincidences for it to be a coincidence. If there was one or two, I'd be like, okay, it's a little weird, but I can't be certain. But like, as you keep seeing it, a pattern over and over, you're just like, it's too much to like, we can't ever prove how much involvement, but like I said, how much would they have to have? They could have just facilitated it, like helped him have everything he needed to do it and just kept nudging. Because if you know anything about those CIA front places, anyone actually into it can walk in the front doors and obviously see like these guys are dressed as hippies, but they're not. Like, they're bad at it. Like straight-laced conservatives are bad at pretending to be like, oh, I'm having a good time doing LSD. Like, they're more so like, I'm going to sneak around and smoke a joint. Like,
there's even pictures of this like Reeve Whitson guy pretending to be a hippie, and you can even just tell from the photo. You're like,
you look at it,
pulling it off.
Yeah. And you're like, you look like a guy dressed up as a hippie for Halloween.
Exactly. Yep. So anyways, another piece that I think is like strange that should be looked at is Susan Atkins' entire testimony. Susan Atkins' testimony was like pivotal for like the whole helter skelter, that whole piece to go through in the trial. And there's like a lot of weird things that happened with Susan Atkins. If you look at like her testimony before trial with her own lawyer versus her testimony at trial.
I think she has like 3 official testimonies.
There's 3 official stories of what she said actually happened. And the story, the timeline on this is really interesting. So Susan Atkins gets arrested. She tells one story that doesn't really mesh with like the whole helter-skelter angle that they're going for. And then what happens is, despite objections from Susan Atkins and her own lawyer that she had, her lawyer was removed from the case and was replaced by a lawyer who used to be a DA for the prosecutor's office.
Like, you can't write this shit.
And like, how does that happen?
Like, can you imagine just like destroying someone's rights in that way of like, you have the right to an attorney, you chose that attorney. Yeah, but we don't like that attorney, so we're just going to give you this one that will play ball with us. Like, that is so obviously illegal, and like, the fact that a judge allowed this to happen,
it's so bizarre.
How corrupt our entire justice system has been since the 60s. Like, I mean, even you look in our area, a judge in Oakland was taken down very recently for stuff they've been doing for 25 years.
Right.
This stuff has been going on since then.
So before I get to the next part of Susan Atkins' story, I want to go back to this memo by Hoover for a moment.
Fucking Hoover. And then they elected him president.
Right.
God damn it.
So
they named roads and cities after that bitch ass.
If you remember, Hoover, in the memo that he sent that kind of created Operation COINTELPRO, there was a section that he mentioned, and I want to zero in on it for a moment. What he said was, the devious maneuver, the duplicity of these activists must be exposed to public scrutiny through cooperation of reliable news media sources. What happened next with Susan Atkins was she had, after her counsel was replaced by somebody who formerly worked in the prosecutor's office, she had a visit. Two people came in to visit Susan Atkins, and they signed fake names in the guest book. At least one of them was fake. They came through. They listened to her whole story. They jotted it all down, and they turned it into a book. And they sold that story to some news agencies, which is bizarre.
Yay. Capitalism.
That's not something. Yeah, that's not something that's supposed to happen, right?
But can I make money on it? Capitalism.
Right. But on top of that, they lied, right? Why did they lie? Well, when you go through and ask the people that were there and check out the records and the documentation, you'll see that the two people that went in were journalists, legitimate journalists. Legitimate journalists that also, when the COINTELPRO files came out, were noted in those COINTELPRO files as working for COINTELPRO in the news media. These are people that were on the payroll as journalists for their organization, while simultaneously being on the payroll for the CIA in pushing certain stories that the CIA wanted to push for COINTELPRO.
Yeah. Not cool, CIA.
Not cool, dude.
Like,
what are
that
you doing?
doesn't sound like, I mean, all these people who are all about our Constitution lately, that's become another big, constitutionalists. But like, you really love those freedoms? Yeah, they're great freedoms. We should have the right to a free press. But our own government is like, obviously, explicitly, like, fucking with our free press.
Yeah.
And we're just like, yeah, but what other news do we have? Like, what is this?
Right. That's crazy.
Like, they've been obviously infiltrating the press for a long time.
I'm sorry, my fucking phone won't shut up. All right, there we go.
Boomer.
I don't think it was
weird, isn't it?
Weird, isn't it?
Weird, isn't it?
I start talking about the CIA, and suddenly I get 1,000 text messages from my CIA handler telling me to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like, come on. I mean, you're obviously a white monkey and a CIA handler simultaneously. Who knows which one you really are deep down?
Wait,
you're
what's
playing
the white
both
monkey
sides.
thing again? That's when you're working
don't
for this.
Pretend like you don't know what the white monkey is. Get out of here.
That's when you're working
Craig.
for China? Is that
Shut
what it
up,
is?
Craig. You know exactly what it is to be a white monkey. Because you are one. Well, why don't you show me the document you signed with all the rules of your new job to come back from China and just spread all about how good China is? Because if they hear it from white people, they might believe it.
It is something like that. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, if you did that, I would love it.
I know you would, bro. That's why I love you.
But most people wouldn't.
Most people would not.
So for the record, he has no involvement with the Chinese government.
Yes, I have no involvement with the Chinese government.
Yep.
Let's put
just
that
two good
down.
American boys.
I'm a homegrown American guy. All right, so next. Sorry, that clap was probably really loud. I'm gonna cut that out. The next piece. We covered part of it a little bit earlier, but we know that Bugliosi, the prosecutor, was lying and covering up for this trial. We know it in a couple of ways. Number one, like I said earlier, we know that he was lying about the Terry Melcher testimony, about Terry Melcher visiting Charles Manson after the murders. He was lying.
And then he got Terry Melcher to lie about it too.
Right, and we didn't really know why, right? And then he got Terry Melcher to lie about it, which is called suborning perjury, right? That's horrible. So you have to think about, like, okay, this is another piece too that's important. In California at the time, I don't know if this is still the case today, but if you suborn perjury, like if you're a lawyer and your client is, you know, not your client. Let's say you're a prosecutor, like Bugliosi was in California. The person you're prosecuting is on trial for up to the death penalty. If you suborn perjury, if you force one of your witnesses to lie on the stand, the maximum penalty for that in California at the time is whatever the penalty is that you're prosecuting against.
Which is kind of a badass law.
It's very badass. It's very badass. And if it's gone, I'm really sad that it's gone.
But the stakes are high.
Stakes are high. And that means that like instead of just like a regular perjury like conviction, which can lead to some very serious consequences, Bugliosi the prosecutor knew that he was literally risking the death penalty in order to get these people to lie for him on the stands. So that kind of begs two questions.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you, because I think you have the same two thoughts I do about that.
Right. That begs two questions. Number one, again, why? Why? Why are we lying? Right. And then the second part is like, how like, how can you make, like, let's say in our wildest conspiracy theories here in our head that somebody at the CIA was like, listen, Bugliosi, you got to go with the helter skelter angle, because if you say that it was a COINTELPRO or an Operation Chaos experiment gone wrong, we're all fucked. So you have to lie, right? How could you possibly get somebody to lie like that for you?
I know how.
How's that?
Maybe you get a guy who is already on thin ice, possibly about to lose his job for previous actions he's already had. So you know he'll play ball because you're offering him a chance to keep his job. Keeping his image, not losing that image of I'm an upstanding citizen. I've made it to become a district attorney. Like, look at me. A person with that kind of power doesn't want to lose it. And he's under investigation before he gets the Manson case for a lot of horrible, horrible things that he had done.
Right.
So who better to play ball than a desperate man who wants to save his face, and you give him the opportunity, like, hey, you do this for us, we'll look the other way. We'll let you keep your shit. We'll even let you write a book, and everyone will take your word for how this all went down.
Right. And the crazy part is he literally had people in there taking notes for his book from day one of the trial.
Planning on writing the book already during the trial.
So looking at Bugliosi's past,
maybe that's my conspiracy brain jumping to what I think, but also it's not a far jump to get there.
But Bugliosi's past. So look. This was the most important trial in American history at the time. And
it was the trial of the century before OJ was the trial of the century.
Literally. Yeah. It was like bigger than OJ at the time. And so you have this LAPD, like the prosecutors, or not the LAPD, the prosecutor's office in LA. They've got a team of amazing lawyers. Bugliosi was not one of those amazing lawyers. And I'm not just like telling tales out of school here. What happened was years before this case came to trial, Bugliosi believed that his wife was sleeping with the milkman, which was a thing back then. And so he stalked and harassed this milkman and his family for years. Like tracking the dude down.
Not like this weekend I found out and I was drinking because I thought my wife was cheating and I did it for a day. No. This was years.
This dude was years, to the point where he picked the milkman's kids up from school once and took them to the toy store and then brought them home with toys as like a threat.
That's like creepy psychopath behavior.
So creepy, so weird. He gets caught doing all this before this trial comes to play, and manages to like kind of duck and dodge and weave his way out of any serious repercussions for it. But everybody knows that it took place, and he's really in the doghouse. So then this trial comes up, and they're like, we have all this team of all these great lawyers. Who are we going to pick? We're going to pick the dude who's stalking the milkman? That doesn't make sense unless you want to find somebody that has like issues that could maybe be leveraged, you know? And that's pretty much like, what I think happened there.
That's just sounds like everyone involved. Manson too. Like,
yeah.
Like them failing at succeeding with COINTELPRO, this was their opportunity of like, we can nudge this guy the right direction. We can allow the environment for him to keep doing this. Yeah. Like every time they arrest him with guns while he's on parole that aren't registered to him, while he's driving intoxicated with an underage person, like they're still like, yeah, but the big one hasn't happened yet. Like they constantly use people that are vulnerable to do their bidding of like, we can help you save face. No one will ever remember this. They'll remember you as something else.
Right.
Which is sick.
Totally sick. So what, I guess that's kind of like, I think that's a good like overview of kind of like the weirdness around Charles Manson. And I don't even think that I have like a straight up answer to what it was. But at the end of the day, I think that there's really only two like possibilities in my eyes. It's, you know, either there is just this amazing set of coincidences that, well, before I even finish saying that, I should also note, just to be very clear, like if you go and try and look up like what event kind of ended the hippie movement, or what event kind of ended the New Left, or what event kind of ended the 60s or the free love movement, or any of those kind of like New Left things that were burgeoning in the 60s, go and look it up.
Take one guess.
Most historians are going to say the Charles Manson murder really did a lot of PR damage, you know, because
then all of a sudden, like hippies might not just be free love, happy-go-lucky people.
They might be dangerous psychopaths. They
might be murderers. Yeah.
There might be murderers out there. You know, they're not just hitchhiking. They're hitchhiking you to hell.
Kill you. Yeah. Like, it's so much accomplished the goal they had.
That's what I mean. Is like either it's an extreme series of coincidences that just so happen to work directly towards the goals of Operation Chaos and Operation COINTELPRO, or it was a successful COINTELPRO and Operation Chaos project. I mean,
I'm at that point where I think at the very least they at least did the classic CIA of, we'll just allow it to happen. That's at the very least of, here, we'll allow this guy to just do his thing because we know it'll cause this. And like, if that's the very least we can say, chances are they did a lot more.
Yeah. And even that is straining myself because of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. It's like, to me, that's like the biggest piece to all of this, is that like, we
and
literally
him spending 3-4 days a week there.
Yeah, we had a facility that was funded by the CIA, manned by the CIA. Its total intention was to use LSD and track mind control. Like, I don't know how I can have this conversation. I've had this conversation since reading the book with multiple people, and I get the same kind of reaction, which is just like, okay, dude, you're nuts. You're kind of losing it a little bit. And I understand. I really do. I want to tell those people, if they might be listening, I get it. I understand.
Oh, yeah.
But like, these coincidences are just too much to stomach. You can't look at them and just say like, yes, that's a normal thing. How many in your daily life, how many CIA agents do you think you interact with? Because Charles Manson was interacting with at least 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
You know,
like spending a lot of time with them.
Right. Nuts.
I did want to look up, because earlier I thought of the Manson quote of talking about how much he was in jail. But like the way he says it, like this is the man that they kept letting go who wanted to be in jail, said, my father is the jailhouse. Yeah. My father is your system. I am only what you have made me. I am a reflection of you.
Boom.
Like
there it is, folks.
Like he raised in the system. He is the system. Who better?
That's what we created. Yeah.
Yeah. He is a reflection of that system. So even at the very least, if the CIA had nothing to do with it, he was literally raised by government systems. So like that's the product of our government.
That's it.
Directly. Like they had the most influence over this human. And that's how he turned out.
Boom. Helter Skelter, baby.
Hell yeah, Helter Skelter.
It's just all about race
songs
wars.
About it. Yeah. Yeah. So from now on, if the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Helter Skelter is the Beatles, fuck you.
I think that does it on Charles Manson. You got
turning bullets in the gold. They got the hookers turning tricks in the cold. And every time the police kicks in the dough, an angel gas breaks dips in the O. And even if a D-boy flips in my O, it ain't enough to buy shit anymore. Sleep in the doorway, piss on the floor. Look in the sky, wait for missiles to show. It's finna blow, cause they got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters. They got the bombs and we got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. Talk about it, I show. Be about it, I know. Talk about it, I show. I just spit the dope lines, I don't snort them. Tell the boss to call police to escort them. You don't ride out them lies, you just quote them. Get offline, plug into this modem. No, you can't outvote them, the rules are still golden. Only jewels we holdin' if we guardin' our scrotum. If you press the ear to the turf that is stolen, you can hear the sound of limitations exploding. Please, sir, may we have another portion? We're children of the beast that dodge the abortion. Neck placed firm between the floor and the portion. When shut your shit down, don't call it extortion. Caution, we're coming for your head. So call the feds and get files to shred. Every textbook read said bring you the bread. But guess what, we got you instead. We got the guillotine.